Well, good morning, boys and girls, and in betweenies. Down on the allotments, been down here for about an hour or maybe more, just doing some strimming. One of the allotment neighbours gave me some veg, which is very welcome. Just going to do something a little different today. I'm actually going to have a little bit of a chat. Hopefully people engage in the chat and give some feedback. And I want to, I'm wanting to talk about allotments and people's misconceptions as I see it. In the UK, we've had hundreds of years of the rights, let's say, to have bits of land, especially in the inner cities and what have you, where we can grow our own food. I was first introduced, if I'm not mistaken, somebody may correct me here, with the introduction of the Enclosements Act or the Enclosures Act. Obviously over the years it's gone through Parliament a number of times, and different acts have been put through up until I think it was 1922, the Allotments Act, which obviously states that councils have an obligation to provide suitable land for people who wish to be able to grow, as long as there's enough people in that community. Now, there was a article in one of the newspapers. I don't really follow the mainstream media, but there was an article in the Guardian, I think it was, with regards to a claim against Claire Rayner, who people may know is the second in command to Keir Starmer. And in the article, the headline said, "Rayner declares war on allotments." So obviously that headline garners a lot of interest, let's say, and people then post those up online. And at the same time, I actually did exactly the same thing. I posted that up online on a lot of the allotments and growing pages. And what actually struck me about it was the sheer naive ability of people. So many people just coming in shouting, "No, that's nonsense. They can't do that. We've got this act, we've got that act. They're not allowed to do this by law, etc., etc. They have to provide land, etc., etc." And on the face of it, yes, there are statutory obligations that the governments and local councils have to abide by. However, what people don't seem to realise is that since the 90s, maybe earlier, I think maybe earlier, there was a agenda signed up to by all the United Nations countries, and it was the Sustainability and Development Act, something along those lines, which is basically Agenda 2030, and they've added on to that Agenda 2050. And within that act, it actually outlines a number of plans that they put forward in order to save the planet. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate on whether there's a man-made climate change or whether this is actually to do with other nefarious acts by governments. But if we just take a look at the Sustainability and Development Act agenda, quite clearly shows in there that the provision for growing spaces by the plebs, you and I, as they see us, they wish to reduce, if not get rid of completely. Over the years, they've used different statutory acts, etc., to be able to close allotments down, to move allotments into more undesirable conditions, making it more difficult for allotment sites to actually get rid of allotment waste before you used to be able to light a fire and use the ash from there to go back onto your plots and what have you. But obviously, because of the clean air zones and all these sort of things, and that's being eroded from us. And to be perfectly honest with you, how many people get to see a good bonfire these days? And it's all because of these laws that have been brought in, which go against the history of this country, for want of a better word. So anyway, getting to the point, you get a lot of these people and they throw up all these things. Oh, they can't do this, they can't do that. Now, I've looked through a lot of the acts and what have you, and one thing I've not seen in there is the word at an affordable price. So whilst all these people say, oh yeah, we can, we have to have these, they've got to provide them like by law, nowhere have I found where it states that it has to be affordable. And therein lies the issue. Our own council, which is partnered with Claire Rayner's council, Manchester and Greater Manchester and Tameside, have suddenly told allotment growers that from the year 2027 they're going to be increasing the plots rents by 16p per square foot. Currently that stands at 2p per square foot that they've been increasing, but in 2027 they're looking to hype that right up to the 16p mark. Now, if you have an allotment and you're not in receipt of a concession, that would mean that if your plot costs you, say for instance, £80 a year, that could virtually double. And at a time when people don't have a lot of money, you can see what would happen in that sort of case. So this thing about the fact that they have to provide it doesn't hold up any water if there's no protection against unlawful and unwarranted price hikes, which then leads into the other one, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 2030. And what I was saying before about them wanting to get rid of small allotment sites, backyard growing and small holdings, and as we've seen with the farmers trying to destroy our farming and agriculture. So as I've said, I've actually put up on a number of sites that video, and I've also then had where's your evidence? Give us your evidence, prove it, do this, do that. And I've put evidence up, I've actually guided people to the World Economic Forum's own website, where the year before last, if I'm not mistaken, they were actually talking about the fact that small backyard growers and small holdings, i.e. allotments, etc., etc., were a bigger threat to the environment than massive agriculture. So basically what they're saying is they don't want you and I to be able to grow our own food organically, or whichever way you decide you want to do it. They're saying that they'll grow it under big tunnels. They will grow GM modified seeds, etc., etc. And the main aim will be to push us onto a bug-based diet, because they're trying to get rid of the meat farms, etc., etc., which would be loved by all the vegans who like to eat all their chemically created hot dog sausages or beef burgers, etc., etc., which have got absolutely no protein in them at all, because of the fact that it's all chemical shite. But as I say, it's loved by certain people, and they have this moral high ground where they're right, and everybody else who has the audacity or the gall to want a carnivorous diet, we are just the murderers of animals, the murderers of this, the murderers of that. What they don't seem to realise is that all their agriculture side of it, their growing spaces, all of their natural food is being replaced. Even the regulations regarding organic growing has changed to allow a lot of stuff in there, which organic people who buy organic foods, if they knew what was being put into that or how it was being produced, would be screaming, because they're paying over the odds for the food that they've got. Sorry, my arm's just getting a bit sore. So anyway, I suppose what I'm trying to say here, I'm just trying to turn up the sun. What I'm trying to say here is, whilst all these people come on and they scream and shout, I even had one person say that she has a doctorate in X, Y, and Z, as if that was going to make her intelligent. And from the moment she began speaking to me, and when I was putting a point across, all she did was insult and try to demean what I was actually saying, and basically saying that because she had all these letters after their name, that I'm thick. However, she was unable at any point to counter any of the points and the arguments and the evidence that I put forward. And there's your problem. Whilst you get all these people who say they've got to do this and they've got to do that and they've got to do the other, ask yourself, have your governments actually achieved those things that they're supposed to do for the people of this country and other countries over the last 10, 20, 30 years? How many of these governments have stopped the influx of illegal migrants flooding into countries? How many of these countries have upheld the right to free speech? In fact, a few weeks ago, you had Keir Starmer actually having the gall to tell Donald Trump at his meeting in Scotland that the UK has a really good history of free speech. He's proud of that, etc., etc. However, whilst at the same time introducing rules, regulations and laws which actually erode and destroy people's rights to free speech, people's rights to freedom of expression, etc, etc, etc. So don't give me that about they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do the other. For years we've had people who, when you mention politics, when you mention politicians, they recoil in disgust. They turn around and they talk about those lying this and that, they're untrustworthy, etc, etc. None of them ever do anything about it, do they? None of them actually get off their sofas, off their arses, and actually say, hang on a second, we need to take control here. We need to put ourselves forward. We need to look after our own communities. None of them. And the ones who do are the ones who are attacked. I could name a few people, but then you'd have the absolute idiots who'd be saying, oh, that person's a racist, or that person's an idiot, etc, etc, etc. Not one of them would be able to actually put up any information or any video footage to show how somebody was a racist, or how somebody was a thug or a criminal, etc, etc. What they would put up is information that's been doctored by the mainstream media. However, with the rise of the alternative systems of media, and I'm talking about the citizen journalists, the people who go to protests, who actually film protests from start to finish. Without those people, you would not ever see the truth of what's going on. I could say to people now, do you know what's actually going on in France, in Paris? Do you know what's going on in Italy and Spain? And 95% will probably have no clue that in these areas there have been riots, the cities have been burning for months, but you don't see it in the mainstream media. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying, if we want to keep allotments, we need to all join together. Even the one with your PhDs who made these claims that which were in effect trying to shut me down and shut the conversation down. Yes, you little lefty. What I'd say is, rather than fighting against your own people, why don't you just join with your own people? Why don't you bring your knowledge to the table? Bring your expertise to the table, and bring your, what's the word? Passion. Bring your passion to the table. I've never been politically minded, never. But the one thing I've always kept at heart is the need for fair treatment of people. I hate people being treated differently, irrespective of who you are. If you treat others with respect, expect that same respect. If you treat people with contempt, expect that same contempt. Simple as. I don't like when people are misrepresented, mistreated and demonised for just trying to get a message out. A message that your own government, your own local MPs won't put out there. They'll put everything out there that they want to be put out there. You can vote against everything that they say they want to bring forward. However, if there's no pushback, they just keep going and going and going and going. So I think it's time for us all to basically stop bitching, stop moaning, stop complaining online, stop putting messages up online about, well, this is going to lead to this, this is going to lead to that, it's time to rise, etc, etc. Get off your asses. All of you, get off your asses. Make videos like this, put them on your own YouTube sites, get the word out there, put your thoughts out there. don't just sit back. It's okay. Show them what you're doing on your allotments. Show them what you've grown, what's worked, what's not worked. It's a good little diary for yourself. And it's, to some people, it's a nice little bit of footage. But get off your asses and start protecting what is rightfully ours. Stop them taking away what our grandparents and our forefathers and the fathers before, blah, 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 all fought for. We didn't fight for this. They didn't fight for this. Why are we giving it away? Why are we just letting people take it? Why are we being treated like shit? I can't do it. If you think for 1 minute that I'm going to bow down and accept my own enslavement and the enslavement of my children and my grandchildren and their children, if there's any of them left, because once they bring in a digital ID and a digital currency, let me warn you now, you will be enslaved in a digital prison that you will never get out of. So if you can use cash, use your cash. Do not allow them to bring in a digital ID, because without the digital ID they cannot bring in a full digital cashless system, which is what they want. Because when they got that, they have full control over every facet of your life. Anyway, that's the last video I'm going to make on this matter. Do with it what you want to do. Comment on it. Whatever you want to say, I don't care. I'm prepared to stand up. Are you?